Alright, welcome back to Roguetech, and welcome back to your first playthrough. So, as I mentioned yesterday, we are ready to jump in and play these two escort missions basically back to back. I'm actually going to start with the half skull mission, in part to see how damaged we get, and then drop on the one skull mission after we've repaired the damage and maybe readied up another mech or two. Which then should snowball into less damage taken there so that we can then more rapidly get into another mission. But ideally, this half skull mission will be able to knock it out without too much happening, too much bad things happening. Also worth noting, always read the description of escorts. Sometimes you're escorting mechs, sometimes you're escorting just standard vehicles, sometimes you're escorting armored personnel carriers, and sometimes you're escorting weapons carriers. So armored personnel carriers, like there's the medevac, there's medevac ones and things like that, where it's likely to be decently armored but very light armament, so like machine guns and maybe some lasers. Then their weapons carriers, like LRM carriers, autocannon carriers, stuff like that, will have a surplus of weapons but very light armor. And the ones like this, I mean, it's a supply convoy, so it's likely to have, you know, a little bit of armor, some weaponry. It's going to be a pretty standard convoy. Whereas this other one that we have is a convoy of doctors. So this one's more likely to be just carriers, or personnel carriers that have light armament, and yeah, we're going to need more firepower for this one because we won't be able to rely as much on the escort vehicles themselves. So again, we're going to start with the half skull. It's the much less dangerous. It's got the better units that we're escorting, so we should be able to get out of this one with much less damage than usual, or than we would otherwise expect. Now, again, as I've mentioned in the past, escort missions are broken down to up to 3 enemy lances. So the first lance that may or may not spawn, and sometimes the briefing will give you a description like the other escort. Whenever we start that one, I'll talk about how it's indicating there's probably a blocking force. This one, not necessarily. Doesn't really seem like there's going to be a blocking force, but there still could be just based on random numbers, the random number generation, RNG. So, we're possibly going to have a blocking force, probably not. And then once we activate the convoy, there will be one lance of reinforcements that we have to fight on the way to the evac point, and then once we get to the evac point, there will be one more lance that spawns in to try to destroy them before the dropship whisks them away, and we can evac once they're whisked away, whether or not we've destroyed the final lance. So because of that, and because there's no real guarantee, since we're against planetary government, that there's going to be much of value available. I'm going to look at this is one of, as I mentioned a couple videos back, there's the breakpoints, the 2, 9, 315, and 521. I was going to say I'm going to go for the 2, 9, but looking at the value here, that's only 157 or 155,000 C-bills. Math. 155,000 C-bills for 3 priority picks. We should be able to get 155,000 C-bills worth of something, which is 3 priority and 12 total salvage that we're gaining. So, honestly, actually, this... So, if we go for 521, we're guaranteed 200,000 minus drop costs plus whatever bonuses we might get. But again, I'm not expecting to take much damage. And this is local government, or planetary government, which means they could drop some very interesting equipment and mechs and vehicles if we're lucky. If the enemy forces are a high roll and we get at least one really juicy target. So I think since it's only what, 70... Math. Since it's only 77,000? Yeah, 77,000. 77.5, whatever. Yeah, I'm actually going to go all in on the salvage. This is not because I'm expecting there to be guaranteed good stuff all over the place. This is because there's a chance of Planetary dropping something very, very interesting, and even if they don't, we are still very much at the beginning of the game, and I will still be happy with things as simple as lasers and, you know, the potential for maybe double heat sinks or something, or maybe even some interesting ammo or something. I'm not opposed to taking ammo, even though I do regret taking the half bin of machine gun ammo, but that's in the past. There's nothing we can do about it now. But yeah, just because the payout is so minimal. The other Escort, the one skulled, has a much higher payout, so we're likely to go for at most 521 there. But for this one, we're definitely going to just go all in on salvage, and hopefully we can make up the difference with maybe selling things if needed. But yep, so that's how we're going to do that. And since this is the half skull mission, let's just drop everyone real quick and consider our options. So, we have the Phoenix Hawk. If you remember, the Phoenix Hawk has decent equipment, decent speed, decent weapons, like, it's alright. It's alright. It does have a mask, so we would like more piloting than a non-mask mech. And actually, Sarge is really good, but we're going to save Sarge because of the disgrace to the ECM shield and probe. We're going to save Sarge for the one skull, because I am planning on trying to drop back-to-back and make use of my whole roster and maybe repair just the Bushwhacker to go on the next one. Again, the vehicles should only give 2 days of fatigue, while everyone else has 4 from the mechs. So I'm planning on trying to drop on the other Escort within 2 days max. We'll see if that pans out, but that's the current goal. Now, Hellion in the stealth sounds like a good idea. We have 4 piloting, 4 tactics, and 3 gunnery. And we have already dropped twice in the stealth. So we're getting towards that first point of ambusher, which is going to be nice. +1 local ECM. Same reason I like... Where'd she... Sarge. Yeah. Why was Sarge at the top? Am I imagining things, or was... I'm pretty sure Sarge was at the top. Whatever. In any case. Regardless. Yeah, this should be alphabetical order, and I think Sarge was at the top for some unknown reason. It's fine. In any case, Hellion, not super defensive, just kind of all around decent Mechwarrior. Dropping them on the half skull mission sounds good to me. Narf, I'm tempted to save for the one skull, just because we might need the extra mech, especially if we don't wait for example, the Bushwhacker to be finished. That extra mech could be very instrumental. So we're definitely going to save Narf for the second mission. I think Braver is a good pick for the Locust, in part because we are dropping against planetary government, and if there is something juicy, we might be able to destroy it with engine crits using the machine guns, especially since the Locust is so maneuverable. So we're going to do that. Trocer, yeah, again, Tainted Loki and the Trocer, building up the affinity, and also he should be ready in 2 days, just based on what he's, you know, the 4 guts and dropping in the Trocer every time so far he's been fatigued for 2 days exactly. Rusalka, again, because we're more likely to be in more danger on the one skull mission, I'm going to save her to drop on the one skull mission in the Locust, just for the extra 3 evasion to make sure nothing goes wrong whenever we're against slightly more powerful targets. So that basically leaves Huldra and Horik. You know what? That's fine. We're saving Narf, Scion, Rusalka, and Sarge for the one skull. No problem. That's, if we get 4 mechs up and running, that's all the mech warriors we need. And then Horik will be in the Mockingbird again, and Huldra will be in the Phoenix Hawk this time. The main reason why I don't mind dropping the Huldra and the Phoenix Hawk is because the stealth very much is, right now, most effective when punching, and Huldra only has 3 piloting. So getting her more experience before we start trying to drop her in the stealth again is valuable. Also, I think the mech warrior that we let go was the Phoenix Hawk, because we let somebody go for Narf, and I think that was the other Phoenix Hawk pilot, the B team Phoenix Hawk pilot. Don't quote me on that. Yeah, because Horik dropped in the Mockingbird and the Assassin. Chaucer, Locust, yeah. So the one we fired is the one that was B Team Phoenix Hawk, so that's fine. So this is basically B Team. We kind of have, like, Tainted Loki's one of our primaries, and Hellions kind of one of our primaries, but that's fine. I would definitely rather have Sarge dropping on the Phoenix Hawk, Rusalka and the Locust just to make sure nothing explodes. Hopefully we get the Bushwhacker up and running for Scion, and Narf dropping in... Wait. Yeah, Sarge and the Phoenix Hawk. Oh, no, okay, so we would be dropping Narf in the stealth. That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Perfectly fine. I mean, Reckless Lucky, so... Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Alright. With that all said and done, let's get into it. Alright, here we go. Dropping in on a half-skull Escort. So,
Command interface
you can see immediately the capture zone that we're dropping in on. Yeah, so whenever we... I guess that's a thing to note. That is a thing to note. Yeah, they're literally just saying the same thing that I was saying about the different, phases in evacing. So she did no, not Sumair. The other character. The scientist one said the sun's setting, so we're gonna have reduced visibility because it's dusk. But that's fine. So when you're deciding whether or not to drop close to the point, the only real consideration is if there is a blocking force. So if there is a blocking force in this particular map, we're not going to really want to drop, like, anywhere where we're going to have, for example, the rough terrain, where we'll have any kind of penalty having moved across it. So it's probably going to be better to either drop on this little area, so we have slight high ground and can more or less just go straight to it, going through cover on the way. Or maybe over here. I believe we'll be able to go through this path onto the structures. I say that, actually. So this building might actually be blocking our waypoints going through there. We can definitely come up this ramp and up this ramp. But if we destroy the blocking force without too much effort, we don't really need to worry about how many rounds it takes to actually activate the point, if there is a blocking force. If there's no blocking force, we can literally take as long as we want to go and just trigger the point. But, worth noting, there's no reason to drop in and immediately run over and capture the point on the first round, because, well, there's 2 types of capture point in Roguetech, in just Battletech in general. The first type is the as soon as you get into the zone, it triggers something. And the other is you get into the zone and then at the end of the round, something triggers. The latter kind is much more common. I actually, off the top of my head, can't think of one. I know they are. I know there are points that are triggered the moment you move in. Similar to the defend base, whenever your allies move into the zone, you don't have to wait till the end of the round for the thing to happen that got triggered. The turrets or whatever activating happens immediately when they enter into that point. Some player activated points are the same way. The majority, though, are you get into the zone, and at the end of the round, whatever point you're in activates. For example, the recovery missions and the... Wow. Target acquisition, that's what it's called. They are definitely 100%. You have to be in that zone until the end of the round, and then at the end of the round, it triggers. So you have to end movement in. I'm pretty sure this is also you have to end movement in it, and then at the end of the round, it triggers, and at the start of the next round, you have the convoy. So with that in mind, I think we are going to drop up here on this high ground in or around the cover. Actually, I think I'll drop outside of the cover so I can move into the cover or mineral field as desired. And I'm just not going to worry too much about it. I will actually drop the Choser farther up, and the Mockingbird wherever. I'm not super worried about it. Again, I don't think there will be a blocking force, but I'm about to be either proven right or wrong. There we go. There is no blocking force, unless it's doing that weird thing where they only show up once you move once. That happens sometimes. But I'm definitely going to avoid running through the rough terrain just in case. Yeah, just in case, because there is a weird thing that happens sometimes where, like, even though there is no enemies that you see when you drop, you finish moving your first unit and all of a sudden there are enemies. Not super common, but when it does happen, it's a little frustrating. Alright, so we can move to here.
Heading out.
Beautiful. And the Locust, we dropped in a position where it's a little bit harder, but it's fine. I'm mostly trying to avoid running through the rough terrain specifically because...
Confirm.
I don't know. I don't wanna. But yeah. So here we go. Reposition. The reposition round, and next turn we're primed for our vehicles to capture the point. You can capture points with either mech or vehicle. Some capture points, it actually matters who you activate it with. Like in recovery, whichever unit you activate the recovery point with has the thing you recovered in the mech or vehicle. So if it gets destroyed, you can lose the mission. But in a capture zone like this, where you're activating something outside of your mech or vehicle, it's just kind of whatever.
On my way.
Yeah, I'm actually going to get in position, and just to demonstrate, running through
Location confirmed.
is not going to trigger it. Ta-da! I think I will activate it like so, though, with just the Locust in the corner. Well, there's no reason to not just bring them all in.
Move it out.
So there we go. The point will be activated at the end of the round. There we go. Allies will spawn. Beautiful. And we should now see enemies. Indeed we do. Yeah. So primary, escort to the point. Secondary, protect them while they evac, and then not secondary, those are the primary. Escort them there, protect them while they get out. Secondary, destroy local government reinforcements. This is the first wave I was talking about after you activate the convoy. There's going to be an additional wave of reinforcements once we actually activate the final point. And then ensure all convoy units survive. This, similar to the ensure all buildings survive in the defend base, is a massive increase if you went for C-bills. Since we didn't, it's not that big of a deal if they don't, because, yeah, it's a percentage increase, and we didn't negotiate for very much at all, so, you know, 10% of nothing is nothing. Now then, as far as the vehicles themselves, the convoy itself, again, there are escort missions where you're escorting mechs, usually heavily damaged mechs, but the more common is to be escorting vehicles of some kind. So you can see this is a coolant truck with vehicle flamers, same. A MASH truck, so a MASH truck is a medical truck, and that's why it only has AMS, so it has no weapons. It can still soak some fire, or at least, you know, have attacks coming at it that would otherwise go for us. And then the J-27 Killjoy, which is just an SRM-4. So like I said, this is a lightly armed, but decently armored for a half-skull mission lance of vehicles. And honestly, since we're in a hot biome, the 4 vehicle flamers that we have access to could very well shut a mech down. And if it's shooting a vehicle, the vehicle flamers actually do kind of insane damage to vehicles and structures. As far as the path, the vehicles have to, when they're moving, the vehicles have to stay within a certain proximity of each other. You can't just run off to one direction with a vehicle and leave the rest of the convoy going somewhere else. They have to stay within a proximity to each other. You have to keep them roughly along the path that is outlined by these smoke plumes. So the smoke that is, designating the path, you have to, for the most part, abide by that. There's a little bit of variation to, either side of the path that you can kind of go on, but for the most part, you kind of need to stay on the path. It is worth noting, if you're moving along the path, you don't have to have every hex you move through be within a certain distance of the path. As long as the start hex, well, obviously the start hex, because the end hex has to be within a certain proximity to the line of hexes from point A to point B. So you can actually kind of go out and around if needed, for example, to dodge mines or something like that. You can actually go a bit off of the beaten path as long as you end up on it at the end of the vehicle's move. They also need to be escorted by your units. You can't just send the convoy off on their own to fight without any of your units supporting them. You have to actually keep them within a certain distance of your own units as well. That also means you can't run off with your units to do something off away from them and still expect them to keep moving on their path. And that's about all there is for convoy movement. So let's go ahead and jump straight into... Oh, also, we're still early enough into your first playthrough that I should still be looking at the enemies and discussing what the priorities are and all of that. So, there is a mobile HQ. So, decent armor, decent structure for a 25-ton vehicle, and an LRM-10. So that thing will be able to fire indirectly, whether it has line of sight or not. And it will be able to fire basically from where it's at, no matter what, the entire time we're going along our path. So that's going to be just a persistent threat. We have a Wasp over here. It's a QS-2, which is a quick cell Wasp. Quick cell equipment, kind of like pirate equipment, is quirky. But unlike pirate equipment, where you have to mitigate whatever oddity there is, like extreme recoil or jam chance or misfire chance, at which point the pirate weapons are above average, there isn't that big of a quirk for most quick cell equipment that you have to really pay attention to, but it's not necessarily on the same level as inner sphere equipment. Quick cell kind of fits in a place between periphery equipment and inner sphere equipment. There is some quick cell equipment is a little bit quirkier than others, and the more quirky it is, the better potentially it could be if you were able to mitigate the quirks. But I'm immediately seeing a missile and 4 ballistic, one of which is either crit or destroyed. I can't really tell yet. I'm not sure why they're white, but yeah, I'm curious what's going to happen once we have better sensors to see what the missile and ballistics are. If it's a bunch of quick cell machine guns, that's actually kind of terrifying, because quick cell machine guns are basically just bullet hoses. They fire a lot inaccurately, but if RNG is with them, they will hit a lot and crit a lot. Copperhead. Okay, so yeah, the Wasp, that's definitely red, which means one of the ballistics is broken. And the Copperhead, one of its missiles is crit. But it is a Copperhead, so 290 structure or 290 armor total, 75 structure, and a decent equipment or decent weapon loadout. So that's probably going to be our primary first target if possible. It has less structure and armor combined than either of the other two options that we see, and it has quite a few weapons. So I don't see a fourth unit. This might again be an example, as I've mentioned previously, this might be an example of the local government just rolling units and then not having fourth unit at all, or it might just be that we don't have sensors or line of sight on whatever it is. But yeah, regardless, I mean, actually, I'm sitting here about to move when I can't shoot anyone. I think I'm going to give them a turn first. Let them come to me a little bit before I start running at them. Okay, the Wasp apparently is not very mobile. I think he just moved 2 hexes. That's both interesting and concerning. Because obviously, the slower a mech is, the smaller its engine core. And the smaller a mech's engine core, the more boom room it has. But that also means it has very little evasion right now. So we might be able to just knock it out very quickly. And I think I'm just, again, going to reserve. I'm going to let them come to me a little bit. Alright, and perfect example of what I was talking about with the escort missions. They are completely ignoring us and shooting at the convoy. So we very well could get out of this mission without taking any damage on our units. Alright, one more enemy. Copperhead moving. Okay. Oh. Mines! Alright. So far, I'm fairly certain we haven't taken any damage yet. But now there are mines. Alright. I guess I'll take a moment to talk about mines. So, our VTOL, it's flying. Obviously, flying units can't trigger mines. Mines are on the ground. So our Mockingbird, we have nothing to worry about. We can just cruise right over the entire minefield with no damage taken. Everything else, though... So, you can see the small triangle symbol. Fairly sure that's... Yeah, I just looked at the preview. It's coming through very clearly. These little triangle symbols means that hex has at least one mine. Now, minefields, whenever they drop, you saw this one triggered the AMS. And since it triggered the AMS, that means these were either Thunder or Improved Thunder or Incendiary Thunder or Sensors. There's also Sensor Missiles. The LRMs have... Well, I think it's just LRMs. Have a variety of different mine types. And obviously I'd rather find out what kind of mines they are with something that's not one of our mechs. But anyway, the triangles mean there's at least one mine in those hexes. Based on how many LRM tubes were loaded with the mines, changes how many mines total across the entire minefield there were. Actually, can we get a look at that? No, we can't. So, there's 2 missiles. If they were both LRM launchers, that means we're either looking at LRM-5s or LRM-10s based on the number of missiles I saw flying. Now, we can very easily, with the Phoenix Hawk, just path around the minefield and not take any damage. The Locust is standing at the very edge of the minefield. Mines only trigger when you move into a hex. So if we path with the Locust immediately to the hex next to it that has 0 mines, it should not trigger any mines unless we go back into a hex that has mines somewhere along our path. Likewise, the Chasseur is out of the minefield completely, so we could go around to not take damage. But I'm not going to. I'm going to use the Chasseur to soak some of the damage. I say that. We have jump jets, don't we? Yes, we do. We have some jump jets. We might be able to jump out of the minefield. Jumping with minefields is very dangerous. If you jump into a hex that has mines, you're very likely to trigger them all. But if you're running through a hex, there's only a chance to trigger each mine. Also, minefields of different types do not stack the way you would think. Minefields of the same type, for example, if the enemy keeps launching the same kind of thunder missile from its LRM tubes every single round, those minefields, those distributions of mines will continue increasing and increasing. So if we run through a hex that has multiple rounds worth of those mines, it will roll to see if those mines trigger altogether. If you have different types of mines, for example, mortar mines and thunder incendiary and thunder improved, etc., all in the same hex, the way the system works is it'll roll for the first type of mine, and if it triggers, it will not roll for any of the rest of the types of mine. If it rolls for the first type and it doesn't trigger, and then the next one does trigger, it won't roll for the last two, etc. So you can only, if you're stacking different types of mines, you can only have one type trigger for any given hex. But if you're stacking the same kind of mine, you can have them all trigger. Is there anything else? Oh yes, the thing I was about to say with the Chasseur before I got distracted. So with the convoy and with our Chasseur, what we can actually do is run through the hexes that we plan to travel through with a mech that doesn't have jump jets, and we can soak the mines, because the mines each only trigger once. Once a mine triggers, it's gone, it exploded. So what we can actually do is we can trigger the mines that we're likely to be running through with a mech using the escort vehicles and using the vehicles that we don't need to repair after the mission. Worth noting, there is usually, with most mines, a little bit of an area of effect, so if you're triggering mines to try to prevent damage to one of your units, you just don't trigger the mines in the hexes immediately next to them. I mean, you can. It will do less damage to the adjacent unit than to the unit running through it. But if your goal is to just not take as much damage, it's usually better to just not go through that space, and the adjacent spaces, just save those for when you actually move the unit you're not wanting to take the mine damage and hoping that they don't go off. There are some mines that go off with a very high, like 80+% chance, and there's others that only go off with like a 20% chance. Here we go. The user interface, whenever you have move or sprint or whatever active, you can see off to the left of the screen, minefield. Mine 3 times 24. So that tells you what type of mine you're driving through. But yeah, so whenever you're driving through minefields, the mines can trigger. If a mine triggers, it usually leaves flames in the hex, and that happens as you're traveling through. So if you drive over mines with a vehicle, and they explode, and it starts burning the hex with fire, your vehicle also takes damage from the fire for driving through fire. And I think that's all there is to say about mines. But yeah, we're going to try to go through... We're going to find a path with as few mines you can see, times 28, times 50, times 64. So driving through these 3 hexes only has a chance to trigger 24 mines. Whereas driving through these 3 hexes, roughly 3 hexes, is a lot more. So that shows us that the distribution of mines over here is much more towards the buildings over here than it is towards the middle where all of our units are, which is wonderful. And over here, there's also more in this cluster. So we got lucky with the distribution of mines. And obviously, if we drive over all these center hexes with the vehicles, hopefully we don't actually end up with, too much left for the stealth. Also, I don't know if it's still the case, probably is. The moving through a minefield is less likely to trigger than sprinting. And then obviously jumping out of the minefield without landing on any hexes that have mines won't trigger mines. So I think we are going to sprint for 6 and cover, I think. And you can see none of the hexes exploded. We still took burn damage of some kind. So they might be some form of incendiary mine. But you saw the pop-up showing how many mines exploded. And because it's a vehicle, obviously the mines are all around the outside, not the turret. With mechs, the mine damage always goes to the leg. So, if you have a bunch of mines, it's a pretty good way to leg light mechs and some medium mechs. But yeah, so there's the Killjoy. We are out of range to fire on either of the targets we have line of sight to. So, oh, also, before I forget, sometimes the vehicles will have like sensor lock or something, but I'm not seeing. Oh, wait. For the handheld rework, they made sensor lock work off of resolve rather than just work. So it might not be possible for the escort targets to spawn with sensor lock and things anymore. I don't know. We'll find out. We shall see. But request hot drop. Not sure what that does still. I know it has something to do with like our Mechwarrior that can drop a mech into the battle. I'm just not sure if it does something like if there's a chance for our escort targets to actually have like a mech they can drop in or whatever. But yeah, you can see these two hexes. This hex has 2 mines in it, and this hex has 4 mines in it. So we could actually run through here with the Phoenix Hog and only risk triggering 6 mines. But then we would still have to run through the rest of the minefield, so I think it's better to just, just nope away from the minefield. Get over here, get 7 evasion, trigger absolutely 0 mines. Yeah, we'll run over rough terrain to get to this high ground, but this also is scattering so that if they fire more mines at us, we're going to be able to, you know, not have it all clustered together on top of all of our forces.
Waiting on you, Commander.
Horik, again, the Mockingbird does not care. You can see no matter where we go, it's not risking triggering any mines. So we're gonna do exactly that. We're gonna fly over there, get our 9 evasion, have line of sight to people, but have no range to people, and I moved instead of sprinted. That's a mistake. I really wish it defaulted to sprint for vehicles, because I mean, there's no point to moving other than the slightly higher accuracy. But yeah, with the Chasseur, you can see we're risking triggering 29 mines by moving straight through. And this is the same hexes I'm planning on running through with the stealth, so absolutely.
Going full throttle.
We'll see if the Chasseur can, you know, get some of the mines. Yeah, there we go. 21 mines exploded. So we took, what is that? 63 damage? We took 63 damage. But it's better going to the Chasseur than it is to the mech, because we don't have to pay to repair the Chasseur. And, 42% on the mobile HQ, but it's obstructed, so we would only do 54, but that's only a 27% on the Copperhead. That said, if we hit side, we kill. So this is a much more impactful shot than we otherwise might be able to get.
Engage.
Okay, we hit front. That's the only position, yeah. Front is the only place. Oh, wait. Mine dispensers. Oh. Okay. So we have good enough sensors to see. Alright. So it had a mine dispenser 20. That's a lot more mines than a mine dispenser 20 used to drop. Impressive. But yeah, so it's got a medium rifle, it's got SRMs, and machine gun. But the mine dispensers are single shot, which means we don't have to worry about any more mines once we get through this initial minefield. So that's cool. The mash truck, again, I want to move through the exact same hexes as everyone else. So I'm actually going to use the waypoint system to do exactly that. Unfortunately, you do have to just move with the waypoint system. But I'm going through the exact same hexes as literally everyone else. So now there's 4 that exploded. And then just brace. Alright. Coolant truck. You can see, actually, we have completely cleared all of the mines from this hex right here. And that's why there's no longer the triangle on it. But yeah, we're going to do the same thing with the coolant truck. We're going to try to do the same thing with the coolant. Can we not? Alright, well, it's it's not letting me do the waypoint thing. So, yeah. I guess we sprint then. There we go. That's basically the path I wanted to take. There we go. 5 more exploded on another vehicle. And yeah. You can see the Chasseur has taken like 1 damage. Or no. Never mind. Yeah, because it was 64 when I... Yeah. So it took no damage from the mines exploding around it, which means these particular mines might not have any area of effect. But, yeah. We can't shoot anything with our coolant truck because vehicle flamers also have very short range.
Commander.
And we're, of course, going to activate this coolant truck first. Again, the waypoints are not working, so we're just going to kind of try to sprint through the same hexes. It's not letting. It's not letting me. I mean, I could just move to this one. Yeah, it's not letting me set waypoints. I mean, we've cleared a lot. We've cleared a lot. Sure. Yeah, we'll do that. Still running through basically the same hexes as everyone else. 9 more have exploded, which means there's 9 less on the battlefield. You can see the hex that has the Chasseur in it no longer has any mines, as well as the hex over here that had mines and no longer does. Now, it's also worth noting, if you have a particle projection cannon or one of the other handful of weapons that say clears mines, you can actually attack ground in a minefield to just detonate and destroy all the mines. So PBCs are useful to have at least one around just to clear mines with on occasion. Other than them just being a solid weapon system that I absolutely adore. Now then, finally time to use our stealth, and you would see now that path straight through where we cleared 4 mines. We're only risking 4 mines exploding on our stealth, and 3 of the 4 exploded. Cool. Not really, but still. We still need 45 damage on the Copperhead, so the Streak 2 is not going to help us there. Might as well fire on the Mobile HQ then with the much higher hit chance.
Here we go.
Alright. Beautiful. Yeah, the Locust... Okay, I can't actually... Oh, no. Not really. I cannot just go directly through the hexes that don't have mines, because the corner that we're in of the building structure. So we can either come over here with the Phoenix Hawk and detonate 6 mines, potentially. 7 mines if we do the weird going back and around, so it would definitely be better to just trigger potentially 6 mines here. Or if we run through the absolute center, we might trigger 26. Well then. Okay, so there's 4 here, 1 here. Alright, there we go. Using the waypoint system, it actually worked. Only 5 potential mines triggering on us there. And 3 of them exploded on us. Cool. Not actually terrible. Considering the minefield that we were facing, we took very, very little damage that we have to repair from it. Minefields are also very reliable ways to get damage on a very high evasion target, because it doesn't care how much evasion they have. And they're still firing on our escort vehicles. Beautiful. I mean, cool. That's fine. It's turret, so the odds of them hitting turret more is pretty low. Also, apparently this MASH truck has extra structure compared to a normal MASH truck. Interesting. I'll take it. I will absolutely take some extra armor. That's fine.
For orders.
Now then. Yeah, that's You know, actually, that's a pretty good stopping point for the video. We went over activating escort missions, dropping in escort missions, and mines. We spent a lot of time on mines. So, for now, that's been your episode of Roguetech for the day. I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, have a good one.